Over 60? 4 worst seafoods you should never touch, and 4 you must eat. Senior health tips. You're standing in front of the seafood counter. Cold mist curling off the glass, the tang of salt water tickling your nose. Ice glistens beneath fillets, shellfish, and fat steaks of fish that promise health, strength, and maybe even youth. A plump piece of tuna catches your eye, rosy pink, smooth as velvet, and almost glowing. It looks like health on a plate. But what if that very piece, seared rare and drizzled with soy sauce, is quietly chiseling away at your memory, your mobility, and the safety of your golden years? You probably won't survive this tuna habit, that is, not if it becomes your go-to every week. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with your location and local time. I love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge back in memory, maybe to a beachside vacation. Grilled swordfish by candlelight, a glass of white wine, the kind of evening you'd bottle up if you could. But beneath the buttery flavor lies a silent saboteur, mercury. The same metal that drove hat makers insane in the 19th century now lurks in the very ocean dwellers you've been told are heart-healthy. Here's the rub. Large predatory fish like tuna, swordfish, king mackerel, and shark absorb mercury over their long lives, and they don't let it go. When you eat them, you inherit every last toxic molecule they've been hoarding. The older you get, the harder it is for your body to process and eliminate heavy metals like this. That means your brain, your nerves, and your kidneys are taking the hit, slowly, invisibly, and relentlessly. Maybe you've noticed a little more brain fog lately, or maybe your balance feels off. You chalk it up to age, but part of that might be what's on your plate. High mercury fish are especially dangerous for seniors because our defenses weaken over time. Our detox systems slow, our cognitive reserve thins, and suddenly that weekly seared ahi tuna isn't the treat it once was. Even worse, mercury and selenium have a complex relationship. Selenium can bind mercury and reduce its toxicity. Sounds great, right? But here's the catch. Many high mercury fish don't have enough selenium to protect you. So, while you're thinking you're eating a brain-boosting meal, you're actually pouring poison into your own neural wiring.
And this isn't fear-mongering. Studies have shown that older adults with higher mercury exposure have greater risk of memory loss, mood disturbances, and even cardiac complications. Think tremors, irregular heartbeat, and rising blood pressure that won't quit no matter how many leafy greens you pair it with. Then there's the bone angle. Mercury doesn't just hover in your brain, it can also interfere with calcium and vitamin D metabolism, the very nutrients keeping your skeleton from going brittle and breaking like dry twigs. So that big hunk of grilled swordfish might cost you more than your restaurant tab. It could be the reason you're reaching for the handrail tomorrow. Here's a fun fact that's not so fun. Canned albacore tuna contains 3 times the mercury of light tuna. Yes, even your humble tuna salad sandwich might need a rethink. If you absolutely must eat tuna, go for skipjack or chunk light. They're smaller fish with less mercury burden. You know what's ironic? The very people who most need the benefits of seafood, omega-3s for the heart, lean protein for the muscles, minerals for the bones, are often the most vulnerable to its hidden toxins. It's like being handed a beautifully wrapped gift that turns out to be a trap. Let's say you're sitting at a sushi bar. You want to be adventurous. You order yellowtail or maybe mackerel. These fish sound exotic and elite, but yellowtail, often actually amberjack, is another high mercury offender. And mackerel? It depends. King mackerel? Avoid it like a Facebook scam. Atlantic mackerel, safer, but we'll get to that later. And don't be fooled by those fancy menus or sleek packaging. Line caught, wild, fresh, none of those automatically means safe. In fact, the older and bigger the fish, the more mercury it's likely carrying. And your aging body, no offense, is becoming less of a fortress and more of a sponge. So what do? You start paying attention. You start being choosy. You swap the big guys for smaller, safer swimmers. And maybe, just maybe, you realize that not all seafood is created equal. Some nourish, others destroy. The hard part is telling which is which when everything's chilled and glistening under perfect supermarket lighting. You know how they say ignorance is bliss? Not here, not with mercury. Not when every bite of your favorite grilled steak of the sea might be sabotaging the very independence you're fighting to keep. So next time you're offered swordfish at a dinner party, maybe just smile, shake your head, and say, "No thanks, I like my neurons." They'll think you're being funny, but you'll know you're being smart. And don't worry, we're not cutting seafood out entirely. In fact, by the time we hit Section 5, you'll be drooling over what you should be eating instead. But first, we need to talk about something far sneakier, something you've probably popped into your mouth 1,000 times without a second thought. It's small, pink, and curled just right for cocktail sauce.
You probably think shrimp is safe. It's tiny. It's cute. It's got that satisfying pop when you bite into it. What could possibly be wrong with a few little shrimp curled on a platter, lounging in cocktail sauce like they're at a spa? The answer? More than you bargained for, especially if you're over 60 and your heart can't afford to play games anymore. Let's cut straight to it. Shrimp is a cholesterol bomb in disguise. A single 3-ounce serving can contain more cholesterol than a full egg breakfast with bacon. Now, cholesterol alone isn't the evil villain it used to be portrayed as, but if your doctor's already given you the side eye at your annual physical, loading up on shrimp isn't helping your cause. And if you think your arteries are loving that weekly shrimp scampi, think again. While shrimp is low in saturated fat, its cholesterol content, especially when consumed regularly, can still raise LDL levels, that's the lousy cholesterol, in seniors who are already at risk of heart disease. Pair that with white pasta and butter, and suddenly your romantic dinner becomes a cardiovascular ambush. But the cholesterol is only the appetizer. Let's talk about inflammation. Shrimp, especially farmed shrimp, can stir up your immune system like a leaf blower on a pile of dust. Many shrimp farms use antibiotics, preservatives like sodium bisulfite, and even toxic cleaning agents to control parasites and algae in overcrowded pens. And yes, those residues make it into your bloodstream. So you're not just eating shrimp, you're eating a side of chemical cocktail that can inflame your joints, cloud your cognition, and sabotage your immune system. And if you've got arthritis, you might be unknowingly tossing gasoline on your own pain. Farmed shrimp also often comes from countries with weak food safety standards, and believe me, those beautiful-looking pink curlies might have taken a bath in something you wouldn't want touching your skin, let alone your insides. Think antibiotics banned in the US, trace metals, and even fecal contamination. Bon appetit. Let's not forget sodium. Pre-packaged shrimp, especially the pre-cooked kind, tends to be loaded with salt to preserve texture and flavor. That sodium is no friend to your aging kidneys or your blood pressure. You know that feeling when your rings fit a little too tight the next morning? That's not just a salt hangover. That's your organs waving a white flag. And what about that cocktail sauce? You think it's just tomato paste and a splash of horseradish? Wrong. Most brands sneak in high fructose corn syrup, artificial flavoring, and enough salt to rival a bag of pretzels. So now your innocent shrimp snack has turned into a triple threat: cholesterol, chemicals, and sugar.
But let's get personal for a moment. Say you love your shrimp. You tell yourself, well, I only eat it once in a while. That's fine if once in a while means a birthday or a special occasion, not Friday night with a glass of wine and a rerun of Murder, She Wrote. If shrimp is a staple, especially the farmed, frozen kind, it's time to reevaluate. Now here's the kicker. Shrimp allergies can develop later in life. You may have eaten it for decades without issue, but as your immune system evolves, it can start seeing that little pink crustacean as a hostile invader. Cue the hives, the stomach cramps, and in rare cases, the ER visit you really don't want. Seniors are actually more prone to sudden onset food sensitivities, another lovely side effect of the aging immune system no one warned you about. Maybe you're thinking, but what about grilled shrimp skewers? What about shrimp in a stir-fry? Unfortunately, heat doesn't cancel out the risk factors. It might kill some bacteria, sure, but it won't undo the cholesterol or magically remove the heavy metals and preservatives baked into the flesh. And don't even start with tempura. Fried shrimp is shrimp's worst form. Drenched in batter, deep-fried in cheap oil, and paired with sugary sauces, it's basically a heart attack on a stick, and your arteries know it. Oh, and that crunch you love? That's your good intentions dying a crispy golden death. Let's say you're in a buffet line. You see shrimp cocktail on ice, a dish you used to eat in celebration. You spoon a few onto your plate, telling yourself it's just protein. But shrimp doesn't come alone. It comes trailing baggage your over 60 body doesn't carry well anymore. What's the alternative? You'll find out soon enough in Section 5. But for now, just know this. When your joints ache a little more, when your blood pressure won't budge, when you feel that familiar post-dinner bloat and think, I'm just getting older, maybe look back at your plate. Was shrimp invited? If so, that little crustacean might have played a bigger role than you thought. And before we leave shrimp behind, let's talk about portion distortion. A few shrimp may be manageable, but most servings include 8, 10, sometimes 15. That's a lot of cholesterol, a lot of sodium, and a lot of risk stacked on one plate. You wouldn't eat 3 eggs, 2 slices of bacon, and a salted pretzel in one sitting, right? But somehow, with shrimp, we give ourselves a pass. So the next time someone offers you a shrimp cocktail, remember, it's not just a starter. It might be the beginning of your next flare-up, your next blood pressure spike, or your next restless night wondering why your chest feels tight. Shrimp may be small, but the damage it can do, that's king-sized. And speaking of fish that look healthy but aren't, let's swim over to something that appears downright virtuous, pink, popular, and oh so Instagrammable. You guessed it, salmon. But not just any salmon, the cheap, farm-raised kind that's quietly turning your dinner into a disaster.
You think you're doing the right thing. Grilled salmon, maybe with a side of asparagus or wild rice, a little lemon zest on top. It looks clean, tastes rich, and everyone from your neighbor to your doctor has probably praised it as a heart-smart choice. But what they don't always tell you, what they maybe don't even know, is that not all salmon is created equal. And the kind that's most widely available, the kind that's affordable, always on sale, perfectly pink and plump, yeah, that one's been living in filth and swimming in chemicals. We're talking about farmed salmon, the fish equivalent of a caged battery hen, only wetter and slicker. Here's the dirty truth. Farmed salmon are often raised in overcrowded pens, pumped with antibiotics to fight off infections from lice, bacteria, and even their own excrement. Imagine swimming in your toilet bowl and you're getting close to their living conditions. That pale pink you see on the fillet? It doesn't come from natural krill or clean ocean diets. It comes from synthetic color additives. Yes, literal pigment pellets. Because without them, farmed salmon would be an unappetizing shade of gray. But the real problem is deeper than color. It's in the fat content, and not the good kind. Farmed salmon has up to twice the fat of wild salmon, but much of that is the wrong kind. We're talking omega-6 fatty acids, pro-inflammatory fats that can throw your body's balance out of whack. If you're already dealing with arthritis, cardiovascular issues, or autoimmune flares, eating farmed salmon regularly is like tossing logs on the fire while pretending it's water. And you probably thought you were eating clean. Let's get nerdy for a second. Wild salmon has a natural omega-3 to omega-6 ratio that helps reduce inflammation, strengthen the heart, and even protect your brain. Farmed salmon, it reverses that ratio. Instead of calming your system, it quietly fuels chronic conditions. And when you're over 60, when every ache and pain seems a little louder,
every ounce of inflammation matters more than ever. Now, let's talk toxins. Farmed salmon is one of the most chemically contaminated proteins on the market. Multiple studies have found farmed salmon laced with PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, a class of man-made chemicals banned in the U.S. since the 70s. These nasties accumulate in fat and have been linked to everything from cancer to hormonal disruption and immune suppression. In other words, the kind of risks that don't play nicely with aging bodies or medications.
Let's not forget dioxins, those sneaky environmental pollutants that can accumulate in fish tissue and linger in your system for years. In seniors, dioxins can worsen cardiovascular health, slow metabolic function, and even affect thyroid regulation. So that farmed salmon fillet that looked so heart-friendly, it may have quietly added to your fatigue, your blood sugar problems, or that stubborn belly weight that won't go away. And before you say, but it's all I can afford, let me stop you right there. I get it. Wild salmon is expensive, but this isn't about cutting out salmon altogether. It's about cutting out the fake, dirty, chemically juiced salmon that's pretending to be healthy. If you can't find or afford wild-caught sockeye or coho, you're better off skipping salmon entirely than inviting this greasy little liar into your bloodstream. Let's paint a picture. You're at a potluck. Someone proudly places a tray of baked salmon on the table. You can smell the lemon and dill. The foil peels back and it glistens. Everyone oohs and ahs, and you take a piece, maybe two. No one tells you where it came from. Costco, a bulk frozen pack from Thailand. That salmon might have been raised in conditions so foul they make your cat's litter box seem hygienic. You eat it. You feel virtuous. You say, I'm eating healthy now. But 3 hours later, your hands are stiff, your gut feels heavy, and your blood pressure's tapping at the door like an impatient neighbor. You think it's age. It might be the salmon. Even worse is smoked salmon. Sounds fancy, right? Sophisticated, a bagel topping that screams brunch elegance. Smoked salmon is often preserved with nitrates and high levels of sodium, which is a terrible combo for aging hearts, kidneys, and blood vessels. Not to mention, many smoked varieties are also farmed, so now you got the full cocktail: chemicals, bad fats, preservatives, and salt, all in one elegant sliver. Let's also touch on sustainability, because yes, it matters. Farmed salmon operations often pollute local waters, spread disease to wild populations, and disrupt marine ecosystems. So while you're trying to eat clean, your dinner may be killing off clean fish elsewhere. The irony writes itself. Now, I can already hear you asking, what about labels? Can't I just buy organic salmon? Here's the twist. In the U.S., there's no official standard for labeling salmon as organic. So when you see organic on a package, it might not mean what you think. It could still be farmed, still fed with pellets, and still packed with the very same risks we just talked about. So what's the takeaway? Simple. If you see Atlantic salmon on the label, it's farmed, period. Nearly all Atlantic salmon is raised in pens regardless of what the packaging suggests. If you want the real deal, look for wild-caught Alaskan salmon, sockeye, coho, or pink. Yes, it'll cost more, but you'll eat it less often and it will actually nourish you instead of sneak attacking your health. For the meantime, skip the salmon at buffets, potlucks, and bulk freezers unless you can verify its origin. Ask your fishmonger. Read the fine print, because after 60, you don't just eat for enjoyment, you eat for protection, for longevity, for the kind of vitality that keeps you walking, thinking, and laughing with your grandkids. And if all this has you questioning what's really in your freezer, good. That means you're awake, you're paying attention, you're building a plate that fights for you, not against you. But before you feel too smug, there's one more curveball. One more seafood sin that slips under the radar because it's been dressed up, processed, and packaged to feel safe and nostalgic. You might know it as crab sticks or seafood salad, but what you're really eating is a lab-engineered, sodium-loaded, flavor-enhanced imposter.
You see it in your grocery store's chilled section. Neatly vacuum-sealed, brightly labeled, sliced into perfect little strips or chunks. Crab sticks, seafood blend, imitation crab meat. Sometimes they even call it surimi to make it sound exotic. And for years, you may have happily added it to your California rolls, seafood pasta, or even thrown it into a salad, thinking, well, it's light, it's low calorie, it's probably good for me. Spoiler, it's not. Not for you, not now, not ever again. Imitation crab is one of the most deceptive items in the seafood aisle. It doesn't come from crab. It doesn't come from any noble shellfish, actually. It's made from white fish paste, usually Alaskan pollock, ground into a pulp, bleached, combined with starches, sugars, oils, and a smattering of synthetic flavors and colors. Then it's pressed into a shape that sorta, kinda looks like crab meat if you squint and don't ask too many questions. And your body? It knows the difference. Here's why it matters. When you're over 60, everything you eat is either helping your system function more smoothly or gumming up the works. And imitation crab is like throwing sand into your engine. It's ultra-processed, packed with refined carbohydrates, and loaded with sodium, which is especially problematic if you're managing high blood pressure, heart disease, or kidney strain. Take a single 3-ounce serving. It can contain over 500 milligrams of sodium. That's nearly a quarter of your recommended daily intake in just a few sad, rubbery crab sticks. And unlike real fish, imitation crab contains almost no omega-3 fatty acids, the essential fat your aging brain, joints, and heart are practically begging for. You bite into it thinking it's protein, but what you're mostly getting is a slurry of modified food starch, sorbitol, potassium chloride, and sometimes MSG, though it may be hidden under aliases like yeast extract or natural flavors. If you've ever eaten it and felt bloated, headachy, or foggy afterward, guess what? That's your body sounding the alarm. Now let's talk texture. That perfectly chewy, elastic bite? It comes from a process designed not to preserve nutrition, but to imitate mouthfeel. It's food engineering, not food preparation. And when you're older, with a slower digestive system and a body that reacts more sensitively to synthetic ingredients, imitation crab can be a fast track to bloating, joint flare-ups, and post-meal fatigue. But it's affordable, you might say. Sure, and so are frozen TV dinners and powdered cheese. Doesn't mean they belong on your plate anymore, especially when you're sacrificing your muscle tone, brain clarity, and ability to get up from a chair without wincing. And speaking of muscle tone, here's a kicker. Imitation crab is low in usable protein. You're better off with a real piece of fish or even a plain boiled egg. Surimi might clock in with a respectable protein number on the label, but when you factor in the processing, the added sugars, and the lack of complementary amino acids, that protein doesn't do much for maintaining your strength or stamina.
Let's picture this. You're at a deli. The seafood salad looks creamy and comforting. You ask what's in it. Oh, just a little imitation crab, celery, mayo, some seasoning. Sounds harmless, right? But in that one scoop, you've probably just consumed a full dose of additives, trans fats, and artificial flavors. Pair it with white bread or crackers, and you've basically eaten a processed food sandwich wearing a seafood disguise. And if you're eating imitation crab warm, say in a seafood casserole or baked pasta dish, well, now those chemical stabilizers and synthetic additives are being heated to high temperatures, potentially producing advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, which accelerate aging, particularly in your skin, joints, and vascular tissue. So yes, that comfort food might be aging you at a cellular level. Now, I get it. Imitation crab has nostalgia. Maybe you grew up eating it in church potlucks, or maybe it's what your grandkids recognize as fish. But nostalgia doesn't get a free pass. Not when your joints ache more each week. Not when your blood sugar is creeping up. Not when your doctor starts whispering about kidney function. And here's another dirty little secret. Some imitation crab products are preserved with phosphates, which may not sound scary, but in aging bodies, they can disrupt calcium balance, strain the kidneys, and even increase cardiovascular risk.
They're banned or restricted in several countries, but still perfectly legal in plenty of U.S. brands. Let's also mention this. Most surimi is made from unsustainable fisheries. Alaskan pollock, one of the most overfished species in the world, is often harvested using bottom trawling, destroying ocean habitats and throwing marine ecosystems out of whack. So not only are you harming your body, you might be harming the planet too, one crab stick at a time. Now let's be clear. This isn't about fear-mongering. This is about respecting your body. When you're younger, you can get away with eating processed filler. Your system bounces back. But now, every food choice either helps you walk up that hill or makes you need to sit down halfway. There's no more nutritional autopilot. So the next time you're at the store and that imitation crab looks easy, convenient, or just good enough for your lunch, walk away. Seriously, walk away like it just insulted your grandchild. Because you deserve better. And you will get better, starting soon. Because now that we've waded through the 4 seafood landmines to avoid, it's finally time to flip the script. Get ready to meet the ocean's true treasures, the ones that heal, fortify, and give your over 60 body exactly what it craves. The tide's about to turn.
You've earned this part. After trudging through mercury-soaked steaks, cholesterol-clogged shrimp, lab-grown crab fakes, and fat-loaded farmed salmon, it's time for some good news. Not all seafood is out to get you. In fact, a few are practically begging to help. And when you're over 60, they're not just good choices. They're life upgrades in edible form. Let's start with the gold standard, wild-caught Alaskan salmon. Yes, it's pricier. Yes, it may require a little hunting around the freezer section, but oh, is it worth it? Unlike its farmed cousin, wild salmon swims free, eats naturally, and builds lean, clean muscle, not fat diluted with pollutants. That deep red-orange color? That's astaxanthin, a powerful antioxidant that doesn't just sound like something from Star Trek. It actually protects your brain and eyes from age-related decline. One serving of wild-caught salmon gives you all the omega-3s your heart's been praying for, along with high-quality protein to keep your muscles from wasting away. And yes, sarcopenia, that slow, sneaky muscle loss after 60, is real. But your dinner plate can fight back. Now let's talk about sardines. I know. People either love them or wrinkle their noses. But if you can get past the appearance, these tiny titans pack one of the highest nutritional punches in the sea. Low in mercury? Check. High in omega-3s? Double check. Rich in calcium, selenium, and vitamin D, a holy trinity for aging bones and immune resilience. And here's the kicker. You eat the whole fish, bones and all. That means you're getting bioavailable nutrients, stuff your body actually absorbs and uses. Forget chalky supplements. A can of sardines on toast with a squeeze of lemon and a crack of black pepper might just do more for your bone density than a bottle of pills ever will. Bonus, sardines are cheap. Like stock up and hoard them like a doomsday prepper cheap. And they have a shelf life that makes your Tupperware jealous. Next up, mussels. Often overlooked, always underestimated. These humble shellfish are packed with iodine, B12, iron, and, drumroll, more omega-3s than most people realize. Iodine, in particular, is crucial after 60 because your thyroid isn't as zippy as it once was. And a sluggish thyroid means weight gain, brain fog, brittle hair, and feeling like a half-charged phone all the time. Mussels also contain taurine, a compound that supports cardiovascular health, calms the nervous system, and helps maintain electrolyte balance. And when you steam mussels at home, white wine, garlic, a touch of olive oil, you're creating a meal that's luxurious, nourishing, and low risk. Let's also salute the mighty anchovy. Often relegated to pizza toppings and Caesar salads, these salty little fish are low in mercury, high in omega-3s, and a phenomenal source of niacin, which supports blood circulation and brain function. And yes, they're salty, but if you rinse them and use them sparingly, you can transform pastas, roasted vegetables, and sauces into umami-rich superfoods. And then there's Atlantic mackerel, not to be confused with the high-mercury king mackerel. Atlantic mackerel is small, fast-growing, and low on the food chain, which means it doesn't accumulate much mercury. It's incredibly rich in heart-healthy fats, vitamin D, and B vitamins. Plus, it's meaty, satisfying, and easy to cook, pan-seared with lemon and herbs or baked in foil with olive oil and capers.
Now, let's do a quick rundown of what all these MVPs have in common. Low mercury, because your brain doesn't need sabotage. High omega-3s for inflammation, cognition, and heart health. High-quality protein to preserve your muscle mass. Bioavailable nutrients, because at your age, digestion efficiency drops. Sustainability, because a healthy ocean supports a healthy you. These aren't just good options, they're strategic choices. They fight your most common enemies: stiffness, fatigue, poor circulation, and creeping cognitive decline. They're the difference between surviving your 60s and thriving through them. And look, eating healthy seafood doesn't mean you have to become a culinary monk. You can still enjoy flavor. Try tossing sardines into a Mediterranean pasta with cherry tomatoes and olives. Blend anchovies into a creamy avocado dressing. Bake mackerel with turmeric and garlic. Steam mussels with fresh herbs and slurp the broth like it's liquid gold, because honestly, it kind of is. Even wild salmon can be indulgent. Pan-sear it with a miso glaze. Grill it over cedar for that smoky depth. Or flake it into a hearty quinoa bowl with roasted vegetables and tahini drizzle. You're not dieting, you're fueling and flavoring your life while you're at it. And here's a thought. Keep canned sardines, anchovies, or smoked wild salmon in your pantry like their emergency backup for days when cooking feels like a chore. You'll thank yourself the next time you're hungry, tired, and staring into your fridge like it owes you answers. One more pro tip. Look for the Marine Stewardship Council blue label. It tells you the seafood was sourced sustainably, and in many cases, that also means cleaner, less contaminated, and fresher product. And yes, you can eat well without wrecking the oceans. Win-win. And let's just acknowledge one last thing. Eating seafood is more than nutrition. It's memory. It's family. It's that vacation feeling. So why not choose versions that actually support your energy, your strength, your brain? You're not just feeding hunger. You're feeding your future. Because if you're over 60, food isn't just fuel. It's medicine. And the sea? The sea still has treasures for you. You just have to choose wisely. Now that we've gathered the best of the ocean's pharmacy, there's one final cast of characters left to meet. Seafoods that act like daily multivitamins. Not just food, but full-body therapy on the fork. From selenium-rich shellfish to iodine-packed delicacies, this last lineup is the one you'll want to write down, memorize, and maybe pass along to your grandkids too. Let's bring it home.
You're holding a fork, but really it's a scalpel, a tool that can either heal or harm, depending on what's resting at the end of it. And now we arrive at the crown jewels of the seafood world, the ones that don't just avoid hurting you, they go further. They nourish, they restore, they shore up the parts of you that time has been trying to erode. These aren't just meals. These are marine-based medicine, disguised as dinner. Let's start with oysters. Maybe you associate them with romance or expensive appetizers, but they're one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. Each little shell packs more zinc than any other food, and that matters more than ever after 60. Zinc is critical for immune defense, wound healing, taste and smell, and even testosterone balance. If you've been noticing a dullness in your senses or your colds linger longer than they used to, oysters might be the remedy hiding in plain sight. But wait, there's more. Oysters are also loaded with selenium, a trace mineral that plays a starring role in protecting your cells from oxidative stress. Translation: it helps slow down aging at a molecular level. Selenium also supports your thyroid, which, as we mentioned earlier, loves to play hide and seek once you cross 60.
Now don't worry, if raw oysters make your stomach churn, you're not doomed. Grilled, baked, or steamed oysters retain almost all their nutrients, and they taste amazing with just a squeeze of lemon or a dab of garlic butter. No need for a fancy platter, just a hot oven and a quiet night. Next, let's turn to clams. If you're feeling more fatigued lately, or your brain seems to take longer to boot up in the morning, you could be low in vitamin B12 or iron. Clams are rich in both, and in forms your body can actually absorb. Unlike plant-based iron, which requires extra steps to metabolize, the heme iron in clams slides right into your bloodstream like it owns the place. They're also high in choline, a lesser-known but crucial nutrient that supports liver function and memory retention. That's right, clams might help you remember where you left your keys or why you walked into the kitchen in the first place. And don't let size fool you. A small bowl of steamed clams and broth can deliver more nutrition than a whole platter of chicken breast. You just need to eat with purpose. Let your meals multitask. Nourish while they delight.
Moving on, we've got scallops. Elegant, delicate, and surprisingly kind to your body. They're low in fat, but rich in magnesium, phosphorus, and potassium. A trio that helps regulate blood pressure, muscle function, and nervous system stability. And if you've ever felt the dreaded old person cramp while getting out of bed or stretching too hard, your electrolyte balance might be off. Scallops also contain taurine, that same heart-supporting compound we mentioned in mussels, and B6, which helps with mood, sleep regulation, and energy conversion. So that satisfying little sear you put on your scallops in a hot pan, that's flavor and function working in harmony. And we can't finish this tour without stopping by seaweed. Not technically seafood, but definitely from the sea, and a powerful addition to your senior health toolkit. Seaweed, think nari, wakame, or kelp, is one of the best natural sources of iodine, which, again, your thyroid adores. But that's not all. It also delivers antioxidants, soluble fiber, and plant-based omega-3s. Ever notice how many centenarians come from coastal communities in Japan or Korea? Seaweed's a staple in their diets. Coincidence? Maybe. But if you're looking for graceful aging with less inflammation and better gut health, don't overlook those salty green ribbons of sea nutrition. Now, let's build a dream plate for someone over 60. Start with a small fillet of wild-caught salmon or Atlantic mackerel. Add a side of steamed mussels or clams. Layer in some seaweed salad or sprinkle dried kelp on top. Round it out with a couple of grilled oysters or baked scallops. That's not just dinner. That's prevention. That's vitality. That's your body saying, "Thank you for finally giving me what I needed." And let's be real. You're not here for diet trends. You're here to stay sharp, to stay mobile, to feel like yourself, even as the calendar pages keep flipping. These aren't magic bullets, but they're close. They're delicious, proven, and they've been under our noses the whole time. You're never too old to change your eating habits. You're never too old to rewire your health. And when your fridge is stocked with foods that nourish you instead of hurt you, every bite becomes a quiet act of rebellion against decline. So from here on out, let the worst seafood stay behind glass in the freezer aisle. You know the ones, full of toxins, fake flavors, and broken promises. And let the best of the ocean into your kitchen, your body, and your future. Because you're not done yet.
Now slow your breathing just a little. Let the last few minutes settle around you like a soft fog over calm water. The waves have stilled. The lists and labels, the facts and warnings, they can wait. For now, just imagine the ocean itself. Not the danger, not the noise, but the quiet beneath the surface. The rhythmic sway of seagrass. The flicker of silver scales in filtered light. That's what you've chosen to carry forward. Clarity, calm, and strength. There's no rush, No need to rewrite your whole diet overnight. It starts with one better choice, one swap on your next grocery run, one question to the fishmonger, one can of sardines you keep in the cupboard just in case. Small shifts, gentle upgrades, that's how tides turn. Your body is still listening. It still adapts. It still heals in ways both subtle and profound. Every smart choice stacks up, layer upon layer, like sediment smoothing out the jagged sea floor. Let yourself feel proud of that. Let yourself sink into sleep knowing you're not just coasting, you're steering.
And when morning comes, when the sun filters through your curtains and your feet touch the floor, maybe your step feels a little lighter. Maybe your thoughts feel a little clearer. Maybe that strange stiffness you thought was permanent starts to fade. Because you're not just surviving the years, you're shaping them. Now, let your mind drift. Let your muscles soften. Maybe dream of a quiet cove, a warm breeze, a table set with foods that love you back. Rest easy. You've got this.